Hello everyone, please press subscribe, press follow, press the bell so you don't miss any new clips. The Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Author by Heavenly Overlord. Translator by NYOIBO Studio. Audio novels by Novelist. The Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Chapter 161. The Old Imperial Palace. Wiz. However, after a short while, the red-eyed shadow disappeared like a ghost. Su Yu was surprised. What was that shadow? Why are you staring into space? If you want to die, go ahead. However, don't drag others down with you. Tang Yuxuan made a sound with his nose and urged Su Yu to go no further. Su Yu stopped looking around and glanced at him. You had better watch out for yourself. Humph. Even though you depend on a woman for protection, you still have the face to be arrogant in front of me. Tang Yuxuan's eyes were filled with disdain and he sneered at Su Yu. Su Yu's eyes were calm as if he had not heard Tang Yuxuan's words. His crystalline pupils were constantly watching out, especially looking at the location where the shadow appeared. 1 hour passed. Within the darkness, the group of martial artists moved forward for about 10 miles until they arrived at the ruins. Su Yu scanned the area with his pupils and discovered that the red-eyed shadow had disappeared. This place that we are in is the last ruins that were developed and 2 treasures have appeared here. Mo Wu stopped for some time and whispered softly. This is the place. Su Yu secretly scanned the area. The ruins were completely searched before and all the old and collapsed building buried in the dust had been excavated. However, there was one thing that Su Yu did not understand. What was that red-eyed shadow that he saw doing secretly at this place? Could it be that within the ruins, there were still treasures that were unbeknown to the people? In another 30 miles' time, we will arrive at the Forbidden Ruins. Everybody, be careful. There are many demonic beasts gathered around the Forbidden Ruins and they are hard to guard against. Please remain vigilant so that there would not be any unnecessary casualties. Mo Wu's reminders had caused the group of martial artists to feel anxious. A calm voice could be heard from the group of 5th-level Holy Kings. Don't worry. Within the next 10 miles, there are no demonic beasts. Hence, we can proceed quickly. Mo Wu's eyes turned cold. When she turned her head to take a look, she realized that it was Su Yu who said those words. After hearing Su Yu's words, several 6th-level Holy Kings from the abyss of Wutong frowned. Junior Su, right? I don't know why you are so certain, but from our past experiences, the area within 30 miles from here until the Forbidden Ruins is a place that lived many demonic beasts. There is a group of bone wolf rat which had been residing in the area throughout the year within 10 miles from where we are. Hence, it is impossible for no demonic beasts to be there, a 6th-level Holy King said with a voice that was still considered polite. However, Tang Yuxuan, who was at another side, did not have such a good attitude. He dilated his pupils and looked afar. His eyes were filled with arrogance. Why, can it be that your eyesight is better than all of us? Su Yu ignored him and said indifferently, this is the observation that I have made after surveying the area. It is up to all of you whether you want to believe me. Mo Wu looked at Su Yu deeply. If she did not remember wrongly, during the eyesight assessment, darkness was inexistent to Su Yu. Could it be that apart from that, he also had the ability to see extremely far? However, as the safety of the team was more important, Mo Wu could not take Su Yu's words lightly. Remain vigilant. Seeing that Mo Wu had no intentions of reprimanding Su Yu, Tang Yuxuan felt indignant. Humph. You really enjoy being under the protection of a woman. Su Yu frowned. Although he had no intentions of competing with Tang Yuxuan kept going against him. Even though it was Su Yu, he was unable to contain his anger. Keep quiet and don't say anything. Keep your rotten mouth shut. You will get your retribution sooner or later. Tang Yuxuan looked at Mo Wu with fear and hummed coldly. Su Yu shot a glance at Tang Yuxuan with his cold eyes that shined brilliantly. There could not be hostility between him and Tang Yuxuan without reason. It seemed like either he had offended Tang Yuxuan accidentally, or he was entrusted with the task to deal with Tang Yuxuan. The group of martial artists moved forward carefully. They covered the 10 miles slowly in an hour. Surprisingly, during their journey, they were not attacked by any demonic beasts. The 6th-level holy kings who were familiar with the area had grave expressions. They exchanged looks with one another and shot glances at Su Yu quietly with dumbfounded expressions. This is strange. It is normal to not meet other demonic beasts. However, how is it possible for us to not see even a single bone wolf rat? They have been residing in the area throughout the years. It is indeed strange. When I came here 3 days ago, there were many bone wolf rats. Why is it that all of them have disappeared into thin air today? However, there is something even more strange. Could it be that the martial artist called Su Yu really has the ability to see everything within 10 miles in the darkness? All the chattering was heard by Mo Wu. After pondering for some time, Mo Wu turned around and looked at Su Yu. Su Yu, how is the situation 10 miles ahead of us? Are there any demonic beasts? Su Yu raised his eyes, took a look, and shook his head. Within 10 miles ahead of us, there is a swamp. Within the swamp, there is a tower known as Anti-Evil Spirits Tower. As for demonic beasts, there is not a single one of them. Several of the 6th-level holy kings were amazed. Within 10 miles ahead, there is indeed a swamp. Moreover, there is also a broken anti-evil spirits tower. Su Yu is really able to see everything clearly within 10 miles. Mo Wu thought to herself for a moment. Proceed with haste. However, be careful of your surroundings. The group of martial artists was slightly convinced about Su Yu's eyesight. However, they did not completely believe in Su Yu's eyesight. It was only until after drinking a cup of tea that the group of martial artists looked at Su Yu differently. There would normally be at least tens of different kinds of demonic beasts gathered at the swamp. How is it that all of them had disappeared today? The more peculiar thing is that Su Yu's observations were correct. Mo Wu's pretty eyes shone brilliantly and she was slightly delighted. What about 10 miles ahead? In the last 10 miles, Su Yu raised his eyes, looked ahead, and his expression turned grave. 3 miles ahead, there is a group of demonic beasts with abilities comparable to that of a 5th-level holy king coming towards us. 3 miles. Thud, thud. Although the group of martial artists was unable to see the situation 3 miles ahead clearly, they were able to hear rumbling sounds, as if a group of living things with a big physique was coming towards them together. The noise that was initially slender as though it was a mosquito buzzing gradually became as loud as a powerful army riding horses, causing the earth to tremble slightly as well. Not good. It is the ironclad horses that reside close to the Forbidden Ruins. There are many of them and their abilities are quite strong. Everyone, stay in formation. The 6th-level holy kings who were familiar with the area changed their expressions. Rumble. In the blink of an eye, a group of ironclad horses were within sight. The ironclad horses were black horses that were 4 feet in height. They had sharp teeth, cruel eyes, and they attacked as if they were an extremely powerful current. 6th-level holy kings, attack! Mo Wu gave a light roar. Rumble, bang, crack. In a split second, the group of martial artists and the group of ironclad horses clashed. The sounds of horses neighing and their hooves clattering could be heard, causing the area to be in chaos. After a short while, the powerful force of the ironclad horses dissipated behind the group of martial artists, leaving behind a land full of corpses. Most of the 6th-level holy kings were in good condition, but a few of them were injured. It is actually the ironclad horses. They had never left to an area that is more than 5 miles away from the Forbidden Ruins. Hence, why is it that all of them are escaping now? The most strange thing is that they had no intentions of attacking us. They were escaping from the Forbidden Ruins. Throughout the journey, there had been many strange occurrences. The group of martial artists finally confirmed that something had happened in the Forbidden Ruins. As such, blood demon bats acted unusually and escaped from the abyss. Moreover, the bone wolf rats that resided at the bottom of the abyss had escaped and the group of ironclad horses that were extremely strong also escaped hurriedly. Mo Wu's expression turned grave. Su Yu, take note of the situation in front of us at all times. If there is anything wrong, inform me immediately. No one else doubted Su Yu's eyesight. In addition, several of the 6th level Holy Kings looked at Su Yu with a friendly expression. In their circumstances, Su Yu's eyesight was extremely useful. 4 miles ahead of us, there are 3 demonic beasts with abilities comparable to a 6th level lower tier Holy King. We can bypass them if we take the right side. 8 miles ahead of us, there is a demonic beast with its ability comparable to a 6th level upper tier Holy King. It had felt our presence and it is trying to bypass us. Su Yu raised his eyes, took a look, and summarized the situation 10 miles ahead. The group of martial artists followed Su Yu's directions and their journey went on smoothly. Finally, they arrived at their destination, the Forbidden Ruins. Incredible. The last 10 miles were known as the Road of Death. In the past, when we surveyed the Forbidden Ruins, in these last 10 miles, we would lose a few of our senior and junior disciples. As for today, we reached the Forbidden Ruins easily and there were no demonic beasts throughout the whole journey. Several 6th level Holy Kings found what had happened so far hard to believe. Thank you, Junior Su Yu. If it were not for you, there would be casualties for sure. The demonic beasts with abilities comparable to a 6th level Holy King residing in this area are quite troublesome to handle and we have lost many senior and junior disciples to them. Su Yu smiled and shook his head. No need to thank me, it's nothing. Tang Yuxuan had a cold expression. Humph. The demonic beasts in this area had already dispersed. You purposely make a mystery of this fact and try to get all of us to be indebted to you. This is merely a small trick that is not good enough to be presented on a stage. Towards Su Yu, Tang Yuxuan gradually got more and more offended by him. Is that so? Su Yu turned around and took a look. Behind us at about 2 miles away, the demonic beast with its ability comparable to a 6th level upper tier Holy King is still there. If you have guts, you can go and take a look for yourself. With Tang Yuxuan's abilities at 6th level lower tier Holy King, if he was discovered by that demonic beast with its ability comparable to a 6th level upper tier Holy King, his chances of surviving and returning were extremely slim. Tang Yuxuan's lips twitched, his eyes became narrow and he stared at the pitch-black area that was far away. His instinct told him that within the darkness, something frightening existed. Who do you think you are? Do you think that I will really go if you asked me to? Tang Yuxuan stopped looking at the pitch-black area, glared at Su Yu and berated him. At that moment, Mo Wu hummed. Tang Yuxuan, if you wish to die, I can grant you your wish. If not, keep your mouth shut. After being reprimanded by Mo Wu, Tang Yuxuan's neck shrank and he hurriedly withdrew his eyes from Su Yu. As he kept his head low, a deeper hatred flashed past his mind. You are a good-for-nothing that rely on a woman's protection. You had better pray that you do not encounter me when you are alone. Tang Yuxuan passed his message to Su Yu coldly and he did not feel threatened in the slightest bit. Deep within Su Yu's calm eyes, a thread of coldness shone in it. In no time, the group of martial artists arrived at the entrance of the Forbidden Ruins. The so-called Forbidden Ruins was actually a cave that was formed at the end of the abyss. The cave ran through the cliff and had a complicated path that was unfathomable. At the entrance of the Forbidden Ruins, there was an ancient and broken spell that existed since tens of thousands of years ago and it was still in effect. A layer of yellow light spanned across the entrance of the cave, completely sealing off the entrance. We will all enter together to prevent any of us from being separated from the group. Mo Wu took the lead in passing through the yellow light. Su Yu also entered the cave. When he passed through the yellow light, he felt an inconspicuous energy piercing his body. The Forbidden Ruins had an ancient spell that was able to keep anyone who was above Dragon Realm level 3 from entering. Only disciples like the group of martial artists were able to pass through the yellow light easily. If it was someone at the level of an elder, they would be unable to enter the cave. Rustle. The group of martial artists entered the cave. This was the first time that a faction from Liuxian surveyed the abyss of Wutong. It was completely unknown how dangerous it was inside the cave. Look, there is light inside, a martial artist reminded anxiously. The group of martial artists saw a light shining brilliantly deep inside the cave as they proceeded. Be careful. Do not let down your guard. Mo Wu was unhappy. Instead, she became more vigilant and walked towards the light step by step. The cave was complicated. The group of martial artists finally saw the light clearly after they passed through 3 bends. That was an energy that was emitting a faint fluorescent light. After countless years, it was still in effect. However, Mo Wu only took a glance at it and her expression changed greatly. Not good. Retreat with haste. It is a transportation spell. Once you are within the range of the light, you will activate the transportation spell. The transportation spell was connected to a dangerous place that was unfathomable. If anyone were transported there, they would be separated from the group. The consequences were unimaginable. However, it was clear that Mo Wu's reminder was too late. Whiz. Su Yu only felt an energy in the space surrounding him and then he was sucked into the spell. Su Yu felt as if the sky and earth were spinning. When he looked around, he found that he was at an unfamiliar place. Moreover, the place he was at was strange. The bottom of the abyss was a sea of darkness. However, the place he was at was extremely bright. Looking around, it was a space that was vast and boundless. Above his head, there were many bright pearls which were emitting extremely bright light. At a distance away, there were many green hills. Moreover, what made Su Yu's heart skip a beat was that at the bottom of the green hills, there was actually an old imperial palace that was still in good condition. The imperial palace was covered with dust and it gave off an atmosphere that it had gone through many changes throughout the years. Bits and bits of astonishing spiritual energy were emitted from within the mysterious imperial palace. Su Yu's heart was moved and he wished to leap into the imperial palace. However, a snorting noise could be heard behind him. When Su Yu turned around and took a look, his expression turned grave abruptly. Space shook and a shadow of a human figure appeared. The human figure actually belonged to Tang Yuxuan. When the spell activated, Su Yu was not too far away from Tang Yuxuan. Hence, both of them were transported to the same place. Tang Yuxuan was initially at a loss. When he realized the presence of Su Yu, he was surprised. However, when he looked around and realized that only Su Yu and himself were in the big space, his expression turned cold. Finally, his pair of eyes was unable to conceal the murderous intents that he had. Su Yu, you should really sigh that your luck is not good since you really encountered me when you were alone. Tang Yuxuan laughed coldly. Tang Yuxuan took a step forward and revealed his murderous intents. Without that woman, let me see who will protect you. The Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Chapter 162. Earth-shaking small jade box. Can you tell me, why do you keep going against me? Su Yu's heart sank slightly. He did not understand. Even though there were no grudges between Tang Yuxuan and himself, why did Tang Yuxuan go against him again and again? He was baffled as to why Tang Yuxuan was so murderous. The conflict between both of them was not so bad, right? You wish to know? Ask yourself if you have killed someone who you should not have. Tang Yuxuan's expression was unusually cold. His 5 fingers turned into a claw and with the momentum of a hawk, he leaped towards Su Yu's head. Someone that I should not have killed. Could it be that among the 2 persons, Lu Guang and Li Hao, one of them was his friend? And he noticed their strange death. As the claw approached him, Su Yu's mind became serious. His deep purple right pupil turned into a bright purple gem, emitting a purple glow that could fill the whole sky. Seal of time. Tang Yuxuan's body was stopped. Taking advantage of that opportunity, Su Yu used icy divine wings and flew away with his wings hastily. Leaving behind fragments of light and shadow in the sky, Su Yu flew hundreds of feet away in an instant. Tang Yuxuan came to his senses. Processing the situation, his mind was filled with astonishment. How is that possible, you? What secret technique is that? An answer did not come. Instead, he watched as Su Yu flew away. Humph. This just confirms the fact I should kill you. Tang Yuxuan's eyes were icy cold. The 6th level Holy King emitted all his spiritual energy into his back and it condensed into a pair of giant wings. The wings flapped, creating a powerful air current that swept everything away. Tang Yuxuan left behind a blur fragmentary shadow and disappeared high up into the sky. When he appeared again, he had already closed the gap between himself and Su Yu by half. Today, no one is able to save you. Su Yu's mind became serious and he flew toward the bottom of the green hills at one go into the old imperial palace. As he charged into the old imperial palace, a whistling noise of the fierce wind echoed behind him. It was Tang Yuxuan who was chasing after him. The frightening power of Tang Yuxuan oppressed Su Yu to the point that he was unable to catch his breath. The impressive strength felt like a mountain on Su Yu's chest. Death by oppression befell his mind in a flash. This is not good. Su Yu's mind was flustered and he flew into the old imperial palace hastily. Creak. The imperial palace was extremely old. It was decaying and on the verge of collapsing. The strong wind that both of them brought caused the imperial palace to give off a creaking and shaking sound. Su Yu was on the verge of collapsing. Pant. Tang Yuxuan laughed coldly and charged into the old imperial palace. Idiot. You still have a chance of survival outside. Here. You are doomed. However, Tang Yuxuan's words ceased abruptly. His cold and laughing expression became serious abruptly. The transportation spell. At the center of the old imperial palace, there was a small spell that was in effect. It was emitting a marvelous character and the faint fluorescent light gradually became stronger. It was a transportation spell. Moreover, the intrusion of both of them had caused the spell to activate, causing the transportation to start. Rustle. Su Yu stepped into the transportation spell with a calm expression. Before Su Yu descended at his current spot, he had used his strong eyesight and discovered the transportation spell within the imperial palace. As such, when he was facing Tang Yuxuan, he was calm and composed. You crafty kid. As the transportation spell was active, Tang Yuxuan had no assurance that he would be able to kill Su Yu. Moreover, he had no time to make any moves as he leaped into the transportation spell quickly. If only Su Yu alone was transported back, and if he destroys the transportation spell on the other side, Tang Yuxuan would be stuck at the space which they were at forever. Titter. The light from the transportation spell became brighter and brighter, causing the old and dark imperial palace to become extremely bright. At that moment, Tang Yuxuan's eyes caught a glimpse of something. When he tilted his head toward it, his pupils shrank. Having noticed his strange behavior, Su Yu tilted his head in the same direction as Tang Yuxuan and his expression also changed abruptly. At the corner of the imperial palace, there was a damaged throne. The entire throne emitted an astonishing spiritual energy that was oppressing. Even though it was about to collapse from its old age, it was still emitting an astonishing energy. The throne gave off a feeling that implied if anyone sat on it, his bones and body would cease to exist. However, there was a skeleton on the throne. Even after having been there for countless years, the bones that were as white as a crystal did not have a speck of dust on them, meaning that it had not gone through any changes ever since it was there. The skeleton also carried a destructive energy. Su Yu also took a glance at it and his eyes felt extreme pain as though it had been stung. As for Tang Yuxuan, he looked somewhere else hurriedly as he had a painful expression on his face. What type of divine being was that skeleton before he died? Just by looking, the remains caused extreme pain in Su Yu and Tang Yuxuan's eyes. Even strong martial artists like the Lixian faction master and the Great Elder were not as frightening as that skeleton. Astonished, they also caught glimpse of something else. The hands of the skeleton were holding a small jade box the size of a palm. The small jade box had a jade green color. Similar to the skeleton, it seemed brand new. However, the small jade box did not emit any forms of energy, as if it was a normal box made of jade. However, how was normal jade able to remain as it was even after thousands of years? How was it possible for it to be held in the hands of the extremely frightening owner of the skeleton before he died? That small jade box was definitely a unique treasure. In the mysterious space, there was a lone, old imperial palace. Within the imperial palace, there was a skeleton that remained fresh, even though thousands of years had passed. There was also a unique treasure that had been left behind up till the current moment. In a split second, Tang Yuxuan and Su Yu's hearts were beating extremely fast. Whiz. Tang Yuxuan did not even think twice about it. He left the transportation spell and rushed to get the earth-shaking small jade box. Even though both his eyes were in pain, which caused his face to look distorted, he was unable to conceal the brilliant light that was shining in his eyes. His unbridled greed had caused him to lose his senses. Rustle. Before Tang Yuxuan reached the skeleton, a layer of energy in the space surrounded the small jade box. At the next instant, the small jade box disappeared. Tang Yuxuan caught nothing with his hands. When he looked back, a red light flashed past Su Yu's right eyes. As for that small jade box, it appeared in Su Yu's palms. Little brat, let go of the small jade box. Tang Yuxuan became furious and roared at the same time. He then flew towards Su Yu. Su Yu's eyes flashed. He did not have the time to examine the small jade box and he tucked the small jade box under his chest. Right after that, the transportation spell was fully activated and it finally started its transportation. Snort. When Tang Yuxuan headed towards Su Yu, the space energy from the spell caused him to be sucked into space, transporting both Su Yu and himself out of their location. After both of them left, that sparkling skeleton which had been there for countless years lost its supporting energy. It gradually became dimmer and turned into ash. Rustle. Su Yu felt as if the sky and earth were spinning. When he was able to feel the ground again, he used icy divine wings and flew away immediately to escape to Tang Yuxuan. Wings and rumble, bang. When Tang Yuxuan sensed Su Yu, he did not take notice of his surroundings and instead made his move furiously. That unique small jade box definitely had some sort of secret that could shake the heaven and earth. However, at that moment, a voice came forward. Humph. Both of you are quite lively. Mo Wu's icy cold voice could be heard by both of them. Tang Yuxuan's whole body trembled in fear and he withdrew his palm which he extended. When he looked toward the direction of the voice, his expression changed slightly. In front of him gathered all the disciples from the abyss of Wutong from whom he was separated from. Every single one of them was staring at both Su Yu and Tang Yuxuan with extremely surprised expressions. Junior Tang, what happened to both of you? Why are both of you only transported back now? A 6th-level Holy King's face was full of surprise. Within the cave, after the group of martial artists was transported by the transportation spell, most of them were transported to their current location. However, when they did a head count, they realized that Su Yu and Tang Yuxuan were missing. After waiting for a few minutes, both of them had appeared. It was clear that both of them were transported together. Why was it that the transportation for both of them was delayed for so long? Tang Yuxuan felt overwhelmed. Could it be that only both Su Yu and himself were unexpectedly transported to that secret space? Right before he was able to explain the situation, he reconsidered and gave up the idea. If he had explained the situation, the frightening small jade box in Su Yu's hands would be known by all of them and become an item that belonged to the faction. I have no idea. I only felt that the transportation took a bit long. Tang Yuxuan shook his head and frowned. Mo Wu roughly scanned Tang Yuxuan and Su Yu indifferently. Su Yu, how about you? Were you the same? Why were you escaping from Tang Yuxuan? Su Yu wanted to report that Tang Yuxuan wanted to kill him. However, he gave up that idea in the end. Firstly, Su Yu did not sustain any injuries. Without any proof, no one would believe his words. Secondly, if he cast aside all considerations for his face and forced Tang Yuxuan into a corner, Tang Yuxuan might expose the small jade box. After thinking for a while, Su Yu's face was at a loss. I only sensed that there was danger and started to run. I do not know what happened. Tang Yuxuan's eyes flashed and he was surprised. I also sensed danger and made my move rashly. Could it be that it was an illusion that was brought about by the transportation? Mo Wu's pretty eyes stared at both of them coldly. It was obvious that they were hiding something. However, she did not probe any further. It is good that both of you returned safely. We will take a rest and reorganize the group for a while. After which, we will continue to proceed. Su Yu secretly heaved a sigh of relief. His icy cold eyes quietly swept past Tang Yuxuan. Su Yu wanted to monopolize that ancient small jade box. Hence, it was inappropriate for him to expose the fact that Tang Yuxuan wanted to kill him. Tang Yuxuan wanted to snatch the ancient small jade box away from Su Yu quietly. Hence, it was inappropriate of him to expose the small jade box as well. Both of them had ulterior motives, but both of them decided to hide the matter regarding the ancient small jade box even though they did not have any prior discussion. Su Yu stopped looking at Tang Yuxuan. He was secretly looking forward to seeing the contents of the ancient small jade box. However, there were many people with him and it was not a good time for him to examine the contents of the ancient small jade box. After resting for some time, Su Yu finally had the time to examine his surroundings. After which, his expression changed slightly. There were 99 bronze doors. Every bronze door was connected to a different passage. Mo Wu's expression turned grave. We have tried to enter the door just now. Every passage can only be entered by one person. In other words, all 33 of us have to operate separately. Her words caused the atmosphere to turn serious. Within the Forbidden Ruins, there were dangers that were unbeknown to all of them. Hence, it would be extremely dangerous for them to operate individually. However, the passages are not deep. Moreover, I reckon that after passing through the passages, all of us will join up with one another quickly. As such, if we proceed with caution, there might not be any dangers, Mo Wu said after pondering for some time. Starting from now on, we will enter the passages one by one. I will lead the group and the two vice-captains will follow the group. After finishing her speech, Mo Wu chose a passage randomly and entered it. After that, the group of martial artists entered a passage one after another. Su Yu's eyes flashed. He chose a passage that was in the center of the 99 passages and entered it. As per what Mo Wu had predicted, the passage was not very deep. After passing through the passage, Su Yu's expression changed slightly. In front of him was a lively ravine filled with birds and flowers. Oh God, there are so many universe's miracle mineral plants. A person beside Su Yu cried out in alarm. Looking at it, there were 9 passages to enter the ravine. Among the team, the weakest martial artist was at 5th level upper tier Holy King while the strongest martial artist was at 5th level peak Holy King. They had been in the outside world for many years and they were very familiar with the universe's miracle mineral plant. Is this a wonderland? The universe's miracle mineral plant that comes by only very rarely in the outside world can be found all over the place. Medicinal plants used to refine low-grade marrow cleansing elixirs grew all over the place. There is also a large number of medicinal plants used to refine medium-grade marrow cleansing elixirs. Look, there is also superb medicinal plants used to refine top-grade marrow cleansing elixirs. One of them pointed at an area in the middle of the ravine happily. There were many charming and glistening blue-colored flowers the size of a human palm. Those were the main materials required to make a top-grade marrow cleansing elixir. In the outside world, those flowers were considered extinct. Within a year, the faction could only collect less than 100 of those flowers. However, in that area in the middle of the ravine, there were 20 of those flowers. Look, there is also a crystal-colored flower. It was unknown who was it, but that person's sharp eyes unexpectedly discovered that within the 20 blue-colored flowers, there was a crystal-colored flower swaying according to the direction of the wind. The crystal-colored flower gave off a strong and delicate fragrance. Even though they were very far away from the crystal-colored flower, by breathing in the fragrance of the flower, they felt that their cultivation bases were vibrating. That is a crystal spiritual flower. It can cleanse the soul. It is the prodigy of soul's unrivaled and incredible medicine which could match the rumored top-grade marrow cleansing medicine. An unbridled happiness reverberated in all of their eyes. Cleanse the soul. Su Yu's pupils shrank and a thread of happiness burned in both his eyes. The Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Chapter 163. Spiritual Blood Red Mushroom. Whiz. A noise broke the silence abruptly. Including Su Yu, many shadows leaped toward the crystal spiritual flower at the same time. That flower was as precious as a top-grade marrow-cleansing elixir. To Su Yu, it was an unrivaled and incredible item that could cleanse his soul. Among those who leaped toward the crystal spiritual flower, Su Yu and a 5th-level peak Holy King had similar speeds and they were in the lead. In the blink of an eye, they were within 100 feet of the crystal spiritual flower. Move away. The 5th-level peak Holy King's eyes were shining with greed. Seeing that Su Yu was competing with him, he gave a cold hum and threw himself towards Su Yu immediately. A light yellow spiritual energy condensed into the size of an eyeball was headed for Su Yu's chest. Right before the ball of spiritual energy connected with Su Yu's chest, it exploded abruptly. When the ball of spiritual energy exploded, it generated a violent blast which struck Su Yu. Taken by surprise, Su Yu was pushed several feet away by the blast, causing him to fall behind the 5th-level peak Holy King. Ha ha ha! This gift from the heavens shall go to me. Jiang Rong was bursting with joy. If he handed over the crystal spiritual flower to the faction, he would be able to exchange it for at least one top-grade marrow-cleansing elixir. After he consumed such an elixir, he would only be a few steps away from making a breakthrough to 6th-level Holy King. Snort. However, when Jiang Rong extended his hand to pluck the crystal spiritual flower, a glittering silk thread appeared from the void and attached itself to the crystal spiritual flower. After which, the crystal spiritual flower was pulled away quickly. Jiang Rong was dumbfounded and he assumed a posture to catch the silk thread. However, an extremely cold air suddenly headed for his back. Jiang Rong's expression changed slightly and he assumed a defensive stance. His 5 fingers turned into a claw and he struck the cold air. Snort. The cold air entered his body, causing his palm to feel prickly. He hurriedly revolved the spiritual energy in his body and expelled the cold air from his body. When he looked forward, it was actually an arrow that was created from weaving icy cold, thin, and slender thread. Snort. The arrow was stopped by a single palm and it turned back into the thin and slender thread, which returned to Su Yu's chest. Jiang Rong's eyes were filled with surprise. What is that? Jiang Rong's expression turned gloomy and he stared at the crystal spiritual flower which was in Su Yu's hands. You dare to snatch my item? Who gave you the guts to do so? Jiang Rong's eyes flashed. He took a few strides forward, condensed another ball of light yellow spiritual energy in his palms and headed for Su Yu. It was worth to cast aside all considerations to fight for an item that was as precious as a top-grade marrow-cleansing elixir. Whiz. At that moment, the remaining 5th-level Holy Kings rushed toward them. One of the 5th-level peak Holy King shouted, Junior Jiang, stop it. Jiang Rong's pupils were slightly filled with fear. Lin Ming, you wish to help an outsider? He shouted coldly. Lin Ming was 29 years old. He wore a scholar's outfit and had qualities of a well-educated person. His words did not contain any forms of anger and displeasure, giving others a feeling that he did not care about the world's conflict. He cupped his fists. I have no intentions of helping him. I do not wish for both of you to get angry or injured over an item. The group of us here are the weakest among the whole group. If we do not work together now, when we face any dangers, we will suffer greatly, Lin Ming said rationally. Jiang Rong hummed coldly. As an outsider, he snatched my gift. The anger should be toward him. However, Lin Ming shook his head lightly. Junior Jiang, have you forgotten the rules in the abyss of the Wutong? During any excavation, the treasure will belong to anyone who gets it first and no one else should fight for it. The martial artists behind Lin Ming nodded their heads in agreement. Among the 9 of them, Lin Ming's abilities were the greatest and they naturally followed him. At the same time, Lin Ming treated everyone nicely and he did not abuse his power. As for Jiang Rong, he was bossy and was not well liked. At the current moment and situation, the rest of the martial artists naturally followed Lin Ming. Seeing that the rest of the martial artists agreed with Lin Ming, Jiang Rong could only contain his anger and not say anything. He glared at Su Yu ruthlessly. Remember, this will be the only time. If not, don't blame me for turning against you and showing you no mercy. Now, all of us will start to gather the materials. How much you gather will be dependent on your own abilities. Remember, no fighting is allowed. After Lin Ming's speech, the 5th level Holy Kings rushed in all directions excitedly to gather the medicinal plants. Su Yu secretly relied on his divine ice threads and snatched 5 of the blue-colored flowers used to refine top-grade marrow-cleansing elixirs. As for the medicinal plants used to refine medium-grade marrow-cleansing elixirs, he did not lay his hands on them. He didn't want to hoard everything. After 2 hours, everyone gained something for themselves. Senior Lin, this is great. I can exchange all these medicinal plants for 10 medium-grade marrow-cleansing elixirs, which will be sufficient to serve as my training resources for the next month. A female disciple who was puffing and panting were filled with excitement. Lin Ming smiled delicately and his eyes fell on Su Yu, who had a calm expression. He then walked towards Su Yu. Congratulations, Brother Su. Your gains are huge. Su Yu looked back and cupped his fists with a smile. Thank you, Senior Lin, for saving me. It's nothing, don't mention it. Lin Ming smiled. Let me remind you again. According to the rules of the Abyss of Wutong, all the treasures acquired have to be handed over to the faction and not be monopolized. Junior Su, please remember that. Su Yu smiled. Senior, thank you for your reminder. I understand. Within Su Yu's heart, he disagreed with Lin Ming. Within the rules, there were many loopholes. If Su Yu reported to the faction that he had lost the medicinal plants, what could the faction do to him? As though he sensed Su Yu's thoughts, Lin Ming smiled unfathomably. Normally, the captain will observe the group. Any items that were obtained have to be handed over to the captain. But now, all of us are separated from the captain and there is no one observing us. As he spoke, he shot a glance at a distance not too far away. At that location, there were a few disciples who came to a tacit understanding. They secretly swallowed the medicinal plants and started to train on the spot. Looking at him, the rest of the disciples chose to ignore it and secretly swallowed the medicinal plants. The captain was not present to observe them and they also possessed many precious medicinal plants. Opportunities like these were hard to come by, as they were all intelligent people who would expose one another. Thank you, Senior Lin, for your reminder. Su Yu revealed a grateful smile that was filled with a deep meaning and he had a good impression of Lin Ming. Lin Ming smiled normally. I did not remind you of anything. It is something that you yourself have understood. After finishing his speech, Lin Ming glided away. Su Yu's eyes flashed. He faced away from the rest of the martial artists and swallowed the crystal spiritual flower on the spot. Gurgle. Once the spiritual flower entered his mouth, it dissolved. A cool and refreshing liquid flowed down his throat like it were mountain spring water flowing into the bottom of his heart. It was so cooling and refreshing that no words could describe it. The spiritual liquid seeped into and cleaned his soul. Layers and layers of subtle impurities were removed under the effects of the spiritual liquid. The impurities turned into a grayish and greenish smoke, which dispersed from the top of Su Yu's head. A free, graceful, and peaceful feeling reverberated within Su Yu's soul. Apart from the 9 dragons cauldron, only the crystal spiritual flower that he just swallowed had carried such a wonderful effect. The effects of the precious crystal spiritual flower were reminiscent of the spiritual liquid of the 9 dragon cauldron and its soul-cleansing effects. Su Yu's soul underwent some changes again. The soul's secret technique, incredible moonlit demon eyes, had remained at stage 1 lower class. There was a gap that was hard to close before he could achieve upper class. In the free and peaceful state of his soul, the conditions were met and he easily achieved stage 1 upper class. Within his eyes that were closed, a golden light that was as bright as a bright moon was revealed. Su Yu was delighted. He had finally made a breakthrough to upper class for his secret technique of the soul. However, what made Su Yu more delighted was that the remnants of the spiritual liquid had seeped into his blood vessels and it seemed to cleanse his body as well. Layers and layers of silvery gray impurity were expelled from his pores. At the same time, because he had ingested too many universe's miracle mineral plants, his blood vessels were unable to absorb the precipitated effects of the elixirs. As of then, his blood vessels underwent a massive change and reverted back to normal. Those precipitated effects of the elixirs were completely absorbed by his body at an amazing speed. His cultivation base was like a huge land that was extremely hungry and thirsty, causing it to absorb the effects of the elixirs greedily. As he breathed, his cultivation base vibrated and rose up sharply by one tier. When his body absorbed all the precipitated effects of the elixirs, Su Yu's cultivation base quietly made a breakthrough to 4th level peak Holy King. Plentiful and strong spiritual energy leaked out from his body. Having become extremely strong, Su Yu was glowing with pride and happiness. He had finally made a breakthrough. 4th level peak Holy King. At that moment, the rest of the martial artists also swallowed an appropriate amount of medicinal plants and were satisfied as well. We will move out now and rendezvous with the main group. Lin Ming led the group of 9 martial artists and proceeded forward. Their location was connected to the outside world. However, before they could get to the outside world, there was a canyon that they had to cross. By crossing the canyon, they would then be able to leave the ravine and head toward the next destination where they could possibly rendezvous with the main group. Before the group of them headed into the canyon, within the canyon was a sea of darkness and there was a cold and chilly wind blowing toward them. It was the complete opposite of the lively ravine that was filled with flowers. Everyone, be careful. The wind contains energy that reeks of blood. Lin Ming's eyes turned serious. The group of martial artists slighted sensed the wind and realized that there was indeed a light smell of blood. Without question, within the dark canyon, there were ferocious beings. This canyon is very strange. Why is it when I revolve my spiritual energy I am unable to see what is 100 feet ahead? Jiang Rong's expression turned grave. Within the darkness in the abyss of Wutong, he was able to see the surroundings within a 300-foot radius. However, in this strange canyon, his eyes were unable to perceive even 100 feet. I can only see the surroundings up to 100 feet ahead as well. There might exist some spells that we do not know in this canyon. Everyone, be careful and do not leave the group unnecessarily. Lin Ming's expression was extremely serious. Moving cautiously, the group of martial artists finally entered the darkness. Once they entered the darkness, they could feel a gloomy atmosphere. The energy which reeked of blood became thicker and thicker. Halfway through the journey, the group of martial artists felt like they were in a pool of blood. However, the ferocious beings that they had imagined did not appear at all. Su Yu frowned slightly. His eyesight was not affected in the slightest bit. Under his observation, the dark canyon, apart from it being pitch black, had no ferocious beings. So where did the energy that reeked of blood come from? Suddenly, Jiang Rong who was beside him stood up straighter in surprise. What is that? Following his eyes, the group of martial artists discovered surprisingly that, at the bottom of a 1,000-feet cliff on the right side, there was a blood-red giant mushroom. Bright-colored and glistening red liquid was dripping from within the blood-red mushroom. It was this mushroom that was emitting energy which reeked of blood. Lin Ming was slightly terrified. After some time, his face was filled with happiness. Oh God, could this be a spiritual blood-red mushroom? What? Spiritual blood-red mushroom. The rumored heaven and earth's treasure as well as an incredible item that grows in the yin of the heaven and earth in which after swallowing it, allows one to acquire spiritual eyes. The disciples behind Lin Ming was astonished. The spiritual blood-red mushroom is a rare treasure that allows one to acquire spiritual pupils. Once it had been ingested, one would be able to view darkness as though it was daytime. Hence, the mushroom was an incredible treasure. Even among the faction, the spiritual blood-red mushroom was so rare that it had not appeared for many years. Whiz, whiz. At the same time when they heard the words, 5 to 6 shadows leaped high up to the sky and competed for the spiritual blood-red mushroom. Among the shadows were Jiang Rong and Lin Ming, whose faces were full of excitement. If they possessed spiritual eyes, their might would be further strengthened in the darkness. However, as the mushroom was found by Jiang Rong, his reaction was the fastest. He was in the lead as he extended his hands to grab the palm-sized spiritual blood-red mushroom. However, just as the spiritual blood-red mushroom was able to fall into his hands, it disappeared abruptly. When he fixed his eyes upon the mushroom, he discovered that the mushroom was pulled away by the icy cold, thin and slender thread. Su Yu. Jiangrong was extremely furious and he looked back ruthlessly. When he looked towards Su Yu was standing at his original position normally. When Su Yu flicked his index finger, the spiritual blood-red mushroom that the group of martial artists was fighting for landed on his palm. Su Yu paid no attention to Jiangrong's anger as he leisurely held the spiritual blood-red mushroom in his palm. I have already given you a chance. You did not value that chance. Don't blame me for not valuing our friendship in the faction. Jiangrong was extremely furious. During the matter with the crystal spiritual flower, he swallowed his pride out of consideration for Lin Ming. However, at the current moment, Su Yu snatched away the treasure that belonged to him again. Even if Lin Ming stopped him, he would not have any mercy on Su Yu. Wail. Jiangrong flew downward quickly. His palm condensed a ball of light yellow spiritual energy as he headed towards Su Yu from the sky. Kneel down now. The Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Chapter 164. The End of the Ruins. Stop it. Lin Ming's expression changed and he attempted to block Jiangrong's attack. However, Su Yu was quite far away from Lin Ming and so Lin Ming was unable to help him. Jiangrong refused to listen to Lin Ming. His eyes were fierce and he launched his attack ruthlessly. No one could help Su Yu. The fierce wind whistled and lifted up Su Yu's silver hair. His calm and deep eyes were shining fiercely and brilliantly. Humph. The group of martial artists heard a light snort and Su Yu disappeared from his position. A blurry purple shadow headed toward Jiangrong without hesitation. Jiangrong laughed coldly. Are you trying to prove something by beating me when you have no chance? How pitiful and regrettable. He was about to detonate the ball of light yellow spiritual energy. Rumble. Bang. Su Yu rushed toward Jiangrong. He condensed his spiritual energy into a blue-green ice flame and collided with Jiangrong. When the ball of light yellow spiritual energy and the blue-green ice flame clashed, they generated a strong air current. However, the tyrannical spiritual energy in Su Yu's body was out of the ordinary. The blue-green ice flame in his palm pierced through the shock wave from the explosion and landed on Jiangrong's palm. Crack. Ah. After giving a horrible shriek, Jiangrong was sent flying. His fierce eyes turned terrified. Su Yu's spiritual energy was superior compared to him. Lin Ming, who rushed to the scene, was surprised. What a frightening amount of spiritual energy. Could it be that Su Yu had honed Thousand Thread Mantra, which was from the faction to its pinnacle? The expressions of the other martial artists who hurried to the scene changed abruptly as well. Among them, Su Yu, who had the lowest cultivation base, had hidden abilities that could defeat someone of the highest cultivation base in the group. The group of martial artists looked up to the sky. Su Yu's silver hair was fluttering and he was standing upright quietly. This had caused the group of martial artists to gradually change the way they looked at Su Yu. As for Jiangrong, who had fractured his right arm, no one pitied him. With his powerful abilities, he bullied and oppressed the weak. In the end, he was dealt a serious injury by Su Yu, and he totally deserved it. Su Yu shot a glance at him. I will let you go this one time. Su Yu tossed the spiritual blood-red mushroom to Lin Ming. Senior, since you are leading the team, you will need spiritual eyes. Hence, the most appropriate person to ingest the mushroom is you. Although the group of martial artists was envious of Lin Ming, they did not dare to disagree. Firstly, Su Yu and Lin Ming were the strongest among the group and they had no way of going against them. Secondly, Su Yu's words were rational. If Lin Ming acquired the spiritual eyes, they would be much safer. Lin Ming was full of gratitude. After he swallowed the mushroom, his eyes emitted a light blood-red light. Within the darkness was as if a pair of red gems had appeared. This is great. From here on, I can survey the situation 1 mile ahead of us. Lin Ming's heart felt at ease. The group of martial artists' heart was at ease. As for Jiang Rong alone, dissatisfaction and hatred were hidden in the deepest part of his eyes. The spiritual blood-red mushroom, which should belong to him, was snatched away by Su Yu. If he had not had any conflicts with Su Yu, maybe he would have ended up like this. After an hour, the group of martial artists passed through the dark canyon safely, although it was scary. During their journey, they were ambushed by several fourth-level Holy King demonic beasts. However, Lin Ming noticed them beforehand and got rid of the lurking danger. Junior Su, thank you for giving me the spiritual blood-red mushroom, as it has allowed me to prevent any deaths among us. Lin Ming was full of gratitude towards Su Yu. Although the abilities of the demonic beasts were not high, there were quite a large number of them in the darkness. If Lin Ming had not noticed them beforehand, there would have definitely been casualties. Let's leave the canyon first and see whether we can rendezvous with the main group. Su Yu did not pay much attention to Lin Ming. He took a stride out of the exit of the canyon. However, what he saw in front of him caused his expression to become slightly serious. When the other martial artists exited from the canyon, they were shocked as well. In front of them was a rift that stretched 100 miles from the east to the west, totally cutting off their path. The bottom of the rift emitted a light yellow light that condensed into a layer of light membrane, blocking off the path via the sky as well. Why is the light membrane from the entrance of the cave of the Forbidden Ruins here? Why would they need to block someone from the Dragon Realm level 3 here? Lin Ming did not understand. Su Yu maintained his composure. He picked up a broken stone and threw it toward the light membrane in the sky. The broken stone landed on the light membrane, causing the light membrane to turn into a powder. The 8 remaining martial artists gasped. A carefree sigh could be heard. Finally, there is someone who is slightly more intelligent. The group of martial artists became vigilant. When they turned toward the direction of the voice, they realized that other members were also obstructed by the light membrane. As the group of martial artists looked around, they realized that the 99 passages were all directed toward the light membrane. As for the person who spoke, it was Wei Kang, who had arrived earlier than him. He was a strong martial artist who had achieved Dragon Realm level 1, and he was the vice captain of the main group. Wei Kang was between 18 to 19 years old. Although he was young, he had frightening talents, and he was the 5th Elder's personal disciple that the 5th Elder was proud of. As for his abilities, he was right below the 4 great core disciples of the faction. As he was flushed with success and he was arrogant. In front of Mo Wu, he restrained himself slightly. However, when dealing with Su Yu and his group, he revealed his true nature. He looked at Su Yu indifferently and shook his head lightly. It is a pity that you are only slightly more intelligent and only slightly stronger than a pig. Lin Ming and his group of martial artists felt embarrassed. Did Wei Kang mean that, in his eyes, they were as dumb as pigs? And that Su Yu was only slightly stronger than a pig? Wei Kang raised his chin and drooped his eyelids. Filled with arrogance, he flicked his finger and a thread of spiritual energy struck the light membrane. Snort. The light membrane changed magically into the mouth of a beast and it swallowed the spiritual energy. This is not the rejection spell at the entrance of the cave. In front of the cave, that spell rejects any strong martial artists above Dragon Realm level 3. However, at our location, if you try to pass through the light membrane when your abilities do not fulfill the requirements, you will be swallowed by the light membrane into somewhere unfathomable. Wei Kang had a grave expression. Evidently, no one had predicted that within the Forbidden Ruins, another light membrane existed. Moreover, instead of rejecting those above a certain limit, it rejected those under a certain unknown limit. Even Wei Kang, who was of Dragon Realm level 1, was rejected by the light membrane. Lin Ming gasped. The 3 captains could not go any further and they were unable to continue leading the group. Whiz. Whiz. Other shadows came out from the other exits one after another. They were members of the group. Some of them were filled with excitement as their gains were huge, just like Su Yu and his group of martial artists. Some of them had bodies that were in dire straits as they were covered in blood. It was clear that they had encountered something that was quite dangerous. After some time, all the 33 members gathered. Although some of them were injured, none of them were dead. Mo Wu secretly heaved a sigh of relief. When her eyes fell on the light membrane, she was filled with surprise and concern. Who arrived here first? Mo Wu's eyes swept past everyone. Senior Wei was the first. The 9 of us arrived next, Lin Ming said respectfully. Wei Kang. Mo Wu's pretty eyes shot a glance toward Wei Kang. Wei Kang slightly withdrew his arrogant expression and replaced it with a respectful expression with admiration hidden in it. Toward the faction's number 1 icy beauty, no one could remain calm and composed under her charm. Wei Kang was one of those people who had tried to woo Mo Wu. Senior sister, I have examined the light membrane. It is difficult for someone of Dragon Realm level 1 to pass through it. If they were to force their way through, their lives would be in danger. Wei Kang moved toward Mo Wu and secretly breathed in the fragrance that came from her wonderful body. He hoped to get a good response from her. Mo Wu frowned slightly. Then, what level martial artist will not be affected by the light membrane? Wei Kang's expression turned grave. I have not found out yet. A thread of disappointment flashed past her beautiful eyes. Mo Wu's eyes then fell on Su Yu. Please voice out your views on this matter. What type of views does he have? With intelligence comparable to a pig, Wei Kang snorted with disdain. Su Yu paid no attention to him. Other than holy kings, no one else can enter. Moreover, only 10 people can enter. The group of martial artists became extremely still. After researching for some time, Wei Kang was only able to establish the fact that martial artists of the Dragon Realm could not enter the light membrane. Su Yu was able to establish the fact only holy kings could enter the light membrane. He was even able to accurately establish how many people could enter the light membrane. Including Mo Wu, everyone was dumbfounded. After some time, Lin Ming, who was beside Su Yu, questioned Su Yu, as he did not understand. Junior Su, how did you find out about all this? Can you be more specific? No problem. Su Yu clenched his jaw softly in thought. Anyone who wishes to enter the light membrane cannot be at a level higher than a holy king and cannot be at a level lower than a holy king. As such, a stone was unable to pass through the light membrane. As for the number of people, only 10 people are allowed to pass through the light membrane. Wei Kang laughed coldly and arrogantly. What a joke. By just throwing a stone, you are able to establish the fact that only holy kings can enter the light membrane. If that is it, then I can close an eye. However, you even said that only 10 people could enter the light membrane openly. Do you think that everyone else has a pig's mind just like you and that they will all be fooled? Having anticipated Wei Kang's response, Su Yu shrugged his shoulders. I do not know if everyone else has a pig's mind. However, Senior Wei, you really do have a pig's mind. Who told you that I had proved what I just said? Su Yu's eyes looked toward the light yellow membrane. The light membrane was distorted and the opposite side of the rift was extremely blurry. However, in Su Yu's eyes, the opposite side of the rift was extremely clear. Wei Kang laughed. Even though it was not proven, you still dared to make such irresponsible remarks. I was right, you have a pig's mind. What I just said is carved on a stone tablet on the opposite side of the rift. Su Yu interrupted his speech indifferently. Wei Kang became stiff and looked toward the light membrane clearly. With his eyesight, he was unable to see through the light membrane. How was it possible for Su Yu to see the stone tablet on the opposite side of the rift? How could he see the words carved on the stone tablet clearly? Surprised, Wei Kang gradually narrowed his eyes. Why is it that only you can see the stone tablet clearly? Lin Ming revealed a strange expression. Looks like there is really a stone tablet on the opposite side. Although her spiritual eyes were inferior to Su Yu's crystalline pupils, they were superior to a normal human being's eyesight. Wei Kang froze and his face turned red. He had taken half a day to establish the fact that people of Dragon Realm level 1 could not pass through the light membrane, yet all his efforts were inferior to a glance by Su Yu. Mo Wu looked at Wei Kang disappointedly. She then went to Su Yu to inquire more about the stone tablet attentively. Su Yu's words had earned the trust of Mo Wu and she did not suspect Su Yu. After a long time, Mo Wu stood up and ordered coldly, "Since this is the case, we will send 10 people over." Mo Wu looked around and made a quick arrangement. "Since non-holy kings cannot pass through the light membrane, for safety reasons, we will send the 10 strongest holy kings, which are the 10 6th-level holy kings, over to the opposite side. However, considering the effectiveness of Su Yu's eyesight, one of you will swap with Su Yu." Mo Wu's eyes swept past the 10 6th-level holy kings before her gaze landed on one of them, whose body was in dire straits after suffering a few light injuries. "You will rest here. Su Yu will take your place and explore the opposite side of the rift." Hence, the 10-man group was established. "Move out now. Within 3 days, all of you must return and report to me." Mo Wu issued her order. After her speech, the 10 of them passed through the light yellow membrane. Just like what Su Yu had said, when holy kings passed through the light membrane, they only felt an invisible layer of energy sweeping past their body, and they passed through the light membrane without any problems. In no time, the 10 of them saw the other side of the rift, which was obstructed by the light membrane. What they saw had caused them to be shocked. The other side of the rift, which was obstructed, was the end of the Forbidden Ruins. Buildings of the old imperial palace were completely preserved. Every building that was part of the excavated ruins were at the faction's center of attention. Moreover, important treasures might also be unearthed. At their current location, there were 10 complete imperial palaces. In a split second, all 10 of them went into a frenzy. Be it a 6th-level peak holy king or a 6th-level lower-tier holy king, their eyes were all burning with excitement. Without the captain's observation, no one would know if they monopolized a portion of the treasures. Whiz, whiz. The shadows dispersed and headed toward the imperial palaces to compete for the treasures. Only Su Yu was left behind. Not only did he not compete for the treasures, but he retreated slightly. His eyes were filled with curiosity as he stood in front of the stone tablet which had warnings carved on it. The Divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron. Chapter 165, Death Light Membrane. As Su Yu's eyes gradually became narrower, he stared at the stone tablet. On the stone tablet, there was a shallow palm print. The stone tablet caught Su Yu's attention as it had existed there for countless years and it had gone through many big changes. The palm print was still considered quite fresh. It was less than a month old. In other words, someone else had come to the opposite side of the rift before. Without question, they could not have been a disciple of the Abyss of Wutong. But who else could it be? Suddenly, Su Yu's mind recalled the scene at the bottom of the abyss where he saw the frightening red-eyed shadow. Could it be the red-eyed shadow? Su Yu was shocked. The other disciples had finally occupied a building of the old imperial palace and they went inside excitedly to plunder all the treasures. In just a short time, some of the disciples' expressions changed and they went to examine the other buildings of the imperial palace. They quickly came out from the buildings again and their expression became even more unpleasant. After an hour, their expressions were all unpleasant. What is going on? Only the 10 of us here have entered the opposite side of the rift. Why is it that precious items were all plundered already? The signs of plundering are still fresh. Which person came here ahead of us? The 10 of them did not find anything at all from the 10 buildings of the imperial palace. Their unprecedented happiness vanished like bubbles in an instant. Since this is the case, we will return and report the situation immediately. A 6th-level peak holy king looked at the surroundings vigilantly. Ah! A mournful and grievous cry could be heard from inside the rift which emitted the light membrane. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The light yellow membrane changed rapidly. The color of the light membrane changed from yellow to black and it caused the air to fluctuate. The words carved on the stone tablet right in front of Su Yu changed abruptly. It is impossible to pass through the death light membrane, please leave quickly. The words on the stone tablet could actually change. The 10 of them were shocked. The light yellow membrane had started to change an unusual black color unquestionably. Let's leave here quickly. The 6th-level peak holy king gave a light roar. He took the lead, flew high up into the sky, and passed through the light membrane which was rapidly turning black. Su Yu's expression changed. He unfolded his wings and started to fly toward the light membrane. His icy divine wings remained at the first form and his speed was unable to match the 6th level Holy Kings. As such, Su Yu was in the last position among the 10 of them flying toward the light membrane. Whiz, whiz, whiz. Shadow by shadow successfully passed through the light membrane and escaped. Su Yu bit his teeth and wanted to fly past the light membrane hastily. At that moment, he was attacked from the side abruptly. Rumble, puff. A hand in the shape of a claw emitting a white light quietly headed for Su Yu's back. Looking at its power, the wielder wanted to kill Su Yu on the spot. As his expression changed, Su Yu did not think twice and he retaliated with his fists. Rumble. When Su Yu attack collided with his opponent's spiritual energy entered his body in a frenzy, causing his right arm to feel a slight pain. Within his body, there was a slight vibration as the pain from his right arm had spread throughout his whole body. When he turned his head to take a look, Su Yu's eyes turned cold. Tang, Yi, Xuan. At that moment, only the two of them had not passed through the light membrane. Take advantage of the opportunity, Tang Yuxuan secretly executed his murderous scheme to kill Su Yu with a surprise attack and escape with the unique small jade box that was in Su Yu's chest. Your level of abilities, have you achieved 4th level peak Holy King? No wonder. Tang Yuxuan was surprised. His surprise attack should have smashed Su Yu's heart into pieces without any problems. To his surprise, his attack was actually blocked by Su Yu. It was evident that Su Yu's abilities had risen. Su Yu was sent flying for 10 feet by Tang Yuxuan's claw attack, causing him to get even further away from the light membrane. The light membrane turned black rapidly. Once it had turned completely black, it would become a death light membrane that was impossible to pass through. Hand over the small jade box. If not, you will be stuck here forever. Tang Yuxuan was a bit worried as Su Yu was more difficult to handle than he expected. As such, he could only use the policy of conciliation to quickly get the small jade box first. As for whether he would let Su Yu go, it was obvious that to keep the small jade box a secret, he would naturally kill Su Yu. Su Yu's mind was full of hatred. Tang Yuxuan was standing in his way during the most critical moment. Seeing that the light membrane is turning black at a frightening speed, Su Yu whizzed over toward the light membrane from a different direction. Rustle. Tang Yuxuan blocked his way. Tang Yuxuan's eyes were overflowing with concern and anger. You deserve 1,000 deaths. That small jade box is not something that you can control. Give it to me now. After his speech, Tang Yuxuan headed towards Su Yu to kill him. Su Yu's mind knew that the small jade box was so precious that words could not describe it. Apart from the 9-dragon cauldron, Su Yu had not seen another treasure that was as precious as the jade box. As such, he made up his mind that he would not give in to Tang Yuxuan. Whiz. Tang Yuxuan was pursuing Su Yu in front of the light membrane, which was turning black. Although Tang Yuxuan was fast, he was unable to catch up with Su Yu immediately. As such, Tang Yuxuan pursued Su Yu for 10 breaths' time. Su Yu saw that Tang Yuxuan was about to catch up to him. At that moment, there was only 1 breath's time before the light membrane turned completely black. Streams of dark deadly energy were emitted from within the light membrane. Tang Yuxuan's expression changed greatly. He ignored Su Yu, turned around, and passed through the light membrane. The dark energy came in contact with Tang Yuxuan's clothes, causing him to rot quickly with a speed that the naked eye could just barely perceive. Under the effects of the dark energy, Tang Yuxuan's right leg, which passed through the light membrane last, was badly mangled. Straight away after that, his right leg turned into black ash. His right leg was forcefully swallowed by the dark energy. After giving off a horrible shriek, Tang Yuxuan returned to the main group wobbly. When he looked back at the black membrane, his eyes were filled with fear. A deadly energy that swallows human flesh. Mo Wu's clear eyes turned grave. It was difficult to perceive the deadly energy with a naked eye. When the deadly energy gathered together to form a thick layer of energy, a naked human eye would be able to see it. That light membrane was filled with deadly energy. As such, one could see how frightening the deadly energy was. Where is Su Yu? Mo Wu's mind was sharp and she questioned Tang Yuxuan. The light membrane had turned completely black and it was impossible to pass through it. If one were to pass through it forcefully, they would be turned into ashes. Tang Yuxuan's expression changed slightly. His eyes flashed and he was full of regrets. Senior sister, brother Su Yu's speed was quite slow. When I left, he had not reached the light membrane yet. It seems like he will have to stay there forever. Within Tang Yuxuan's heart, he was full of remorse. That small jade box was definitely a frightening item. At Mo Wu's clear expression changed and her mind was in a turmoil. Su Yu did not manage to escape. What made Mo Wu's mood heavy was that the death light membrane had started to emit thick layers of dark deadly energy. Not good. Everyone, leave quickly. Wei Kang's head was tingling. To someone of the dragon realm, that frightening deadly energy could mean death. Whiz, whiz, whiz. The group of martial artists retreated to whence they came and hid in the ravine that Su Yu and his group of martial artists were previously at to avoid the dark energy. Mo Wu's beautiful eyes shrank. She blamed herself. Why did she send Su Yu over to the other side of the rift? How was she going to answer to her master later on? How was she going to bring up this matter to Xianna? Not good. Continue to retreat. The deadly energy will totally cover up the forbidden ruins and we cannot stay in the ruins any longer. The other Dragon Realm Level 1 Vice Captain, Lan Ling, changed her expression and made a prompt decision as they ordered the group of martial artists. The dark energy passed through the canyon and entered the ravine. All the living beings in the places that the dark energy passed by turned into ashes. The lively ravine which was filled with flowers turned into black ash which filled the sky instantly as if it was hell. Mo Wu looked out of the ravine with a remorseful expression. Su Yu, sorry. She led the group of martial artists and retreated back to where they came from hastily. Every time they retreated back to another area, the dark energy would catch up to them. During their escape, all the demonic beasts that they met were turned into ash by the dark energy, not even their bones were left. The deadly energy that caused all of their heads to feel tingly had forced them to leave the forbidden cave. Only once they reached the light yellow membrane at the entrance of the cave was the deadly energy blocked and kept inside the cave. If not for that, the whole abyss of Wutong would have been covered by black mist. The group of martial artists narrowly escaped from their death. Their losses were quite great and they were in dire straits. All their faces wore an elated expression as they, fortunately, survived the crisis. We got out of the danger alive. What is the horrible shriek that came from deep inside the rift? Why did cause the light membrane to change and become full of deadly energy? That was the question that everyone had. Lin Ming's face was filled with grief. The only pitiful thing is that Junior Su, we have abandoned him. The group of martial artists became terrified. Although Su Yu's cultivation base was not high, his contributions to the group were so great that he could be not replaced. Most of the disciples from the abyss of Wutong had good impressions of him. All of them had escaped. Su Yu alone was left behind forever. Mo Wu slowly closed her eyes and cupped her jade-like fists. Her knuckles turned slightly white. She had failed to bring Su Yu back alive. Senior Mo, sorry, Tang Yuxuan pretended to be remorseful. Although everyone else did not say anything, Tang Yuxuan sensed that they blamed him. Why did he not give Su Yu a hand during the critical moment? Slap. Mo Wu opened her eyes. Her eyes were overflowing with coldness and her jade-like hands slapped Tang Yuxuan's cheeks ruthlessly. Her clear and gloomy slap left everyone else dumbfounded. Tang Yuxuan himself was stupefied. Had he really just been slapped in front of everyone? Tang Yuxuan became furious. Even if he was really at fault, was there a need to slap him in front of everyone? His voice ceased abruptly. After slapping him, Mo Wu also slapped herself. A clear red palm print appeared on her beautiful face that looked like jade that had been carved. Everyone then realized that Mo Wu's eyes were overflowing with tears. You are responsible for Su Yu's death, but I am even more responsible, Mo Wu said coldly. Her words were slightly trembling. This had never happened before. Everyone felt ashamed and mournful. Senior Mo was depressed over Su Yu's death. She, who was as cold as an ice mountain, was unable to express her happiness or anger. She was in mourning. Tang Yuxuan touched his warm face and he secretly felt hatred within him. You dare slap me? Good. It's time then. Mo Wu, your good days shall come to an end. Within the Forbidden Ruins, Su Yu's expression was extremely grave. The appearance of the death light membrane had caused the atmosphere to be filled with deadly energy as if it wanted to turn everything into ash. Moreover, Su Yu was at the end of the ruins and there was no way out. Against the frightening deadly energy, there was nothing that Su Yu could do. Am I going to die here? Su Yu was dissatisfied. If he died, who would rescue Xiana? Would Jingyu be depressed? Even though the heaven and earth were vast, he could not ask anyone for help. Snap. At that moment, the words carved on the stone tablet changed again. If you wish to be rescued, go to the bottom of the rift. Su Yu did not even think twice and he headed deep down into the rift. As to whether he could escape from the deadly energy, it was a race against time. Whether the words carved on the stone were true or false, Su Yu had no choice but to follow them. If he stayed on the surface, he would be killed by the deadly energy. If he headed to the bottom of the rift, he might have a chance of surviving. Snort. The rift was not very deep, it was only a few hundred feet deep. When Su Yu landed at the bottom of the abyss, the deadly energy swept past the area. It came into contact with Su Yu's clothes, causing him to turn into ash. The anti-dust purple robe that Su Yu wore had been already damaged by the snow lion's stomach acid. It was now completely destroyed. Surprisingly, Su Yu discovered that the deadly energy could only linger about 10 feet above the bottom of the rift. As such, the bottom of the rift was extremely safe. After countless years, I finally see a second living person. An old and hoarse voice which carried an ancient vibe could be heard by Su Yu. Su Yu's expression changed and he felt a chill in his spine. End of the chapter. The Divine Nine Dragon will be read in 5 chapters for every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday and Sunday. Please leave this sound novel and press subscribe, follow, and the bell so you don't miss any new clips as well. See you.